Hi, in this video I'll show you how to solve linear inequality and how to graph it. You can see that my equation has three fractions in it. It involves three fractions and it's always difficult to deal with the fractions. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the fraction, and I'll show you how to solve the same equation in two different ways. So how do we get rid of the denominator? Is we have to find the least common multiple and then multiply both sides of the equation by the least common multiple. And let's see how can we get the least common multiple. So what we will do is we'll list the multiples of 4, 2, and 3. So what are the multiples of 4? 4 times 2 is 8, 12, 16, 20. Let's see what are the multiples of 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Then multiples of 3, 3, 6, 9, 12. And you can see that the least common multiple in all three, least common multiple is 12. So that means this is also called as a least common denominator because since you're finding the least common denominator, that's why it's called least common denominator. You can also call it LCD. So the best way to get rid of the fraction is you find the least common multiple or least common denominator and then multiply both sides of the equation by the least common multiple. So let's multiply both sides of the equation by 12. So the way of writing it is I will put this inside the parentheses and then write 12 outside, since I have to multiply 12 in each and every term in the equation. And then I have to multiply this side as well by 12. So now let's just distribute 12 inside. So this is 12 times 1 over 4. Well, 12 times 1 over 4 is like 12 times 1 over 4. So you can just set the denominator equal to 1 and then multiply the numerators and denominators. Looks like typically how you solve the fractions. So this is 12 over 4 and 12 over 4 is 3. So I will write here 3. I have x plus 12 times 1 half. You solve it by the same method. Instead of 1/4, you'll have 1 half. So 12 times 1 half, you can just set the denominator equal to 1. Multiply the numerators and the denominators. 12 times 1 will give you 12. And 1 times 2 will give you 2. And 12 divided by 2 is 6. So I'm going to write 6 here directly. I have 6. And then, so I don't need the parentheses now since I've multiplied 12 inside the parentheses. Then I have less than equal to sign and 1/3 x times 12. So for just a moment, we can just ignore the variable and just multiply 1/3 times 12. It's the same thing. You just set the denominator equal to 1. 12 times 1 will give you 12 and 3 times 1 will be 3. So 12 divided by 3 will give you 4. You can write 4 here and now you have x in the picture again. So write x here. Now this is a simple equation. You have to bring all the variables to one side. So what I'm going to do is I want to bring 3x to this side, so I will subtract both sides of the equation by 3x. Now you can ask that why did I subtract 4x? Well, I can do that, but if I subtract 4x on both the sides, 3x minus 4x will give me negative x, and I don't want to deal with the negative number. So that's why I try to avoid it. Well, you can do if you want. So now 3x minus 3x will be 0, so we can just cancel them, and then on the left hand side I'll bring down 6 and I don't have to write the positive sign in front of 6, and then I have less than equal to 4x minus 3x will be 1x, and it's not necessary to write 1 in front of x, so I will just write this as x. Now you can see that typically what we are used to see is we always have the variables on the left hand side and then the answer to the right hand side. Now here you can see that the answer is on the left hand side and the variable is on the right hand side. Well, we can just swap their positions. So if you swap the positions, if you want to bring the variable to the left hand side and the constant to the right hand side, the value to the right hand side, you just have to swap the inequality sign. So we'll just swap. So you can see it like this. 6 is less than equal to x. 6 is either less than or equal to x. That means x is greater than or equal to 6. Both the things are same, right? 6 is less than x. 6 is less than equal to x, or x is greater than equal to 6, right? So now when you have to graph this inequality, so let's draw the number line. And I always prefer to write my solution in the center. So I will have 6. Now, all the numbers on the right hand side of the number line will be greater than 6. So I will just write 7, 8, 9, and so on. And then all the numbers to the left of the number 6 will be less than 6. So I will have 5, 4, 3, and so on. I'll just put the arrow. Now, x is greater than equal to 6. That means the value of x is either greater than 6 or equal to 6. That means 6 is a part of my solution. So I will have a closed circle on 6. Since it's a part of the solution, I will have a closed circle. That means my answer includes 6. It includes 6. And then I'll shade the right side of the number line. Why I'm shading only the right side of the number line is because x is greater than 6. And the numbers to the right side of 6 are all greater than 6. So that's why I'm just shading this part. So x is greater than 6. That's why I'm shading the number line which is telling me that x is greater than 6. So I'll just put the arrow here now. That's how you have to graph the inequality. Now, let's see how do we solve the same question in a different way. So I'll show you 2 different ways to solve the same question. We'll get the same answer. So again, I'll write my question. 1 over 4x plus 1/2 is less than equal to 1/3 x. So what we can do here is, if we don't want to get rid of the fraction, what we can do is we can bring the variables to one side, since I have the variables on both the sides. So I can bring the variables to one side. Now, one thing you can do is you can bring 1 over 3x to the left-hand side, but I would prefer to bring 1 over 4x to the right-hand side. Now, you'll say, why? Because 1 over 3 is smaller. I mean, if you bring 1 over 4 to this side, you'll end up with a positive number in front of the variable. But if you bring 1 over 3 to this side, you'll end up with a negative number in front of the variable. So that's why I will try to bring 1 over 4x to this side, since 1 over 4 is smaller than 1 over 3. That's why. And when you subtract, you remember when you subtract a smaller number from a greater number, you get the positive value. And if you subtract a greater number from a smaller number, you get the negative value. So just to avoid that, I'm bringing 1 over 4x to that side. But it's up to you. If you want to bring 1 over 3x to the left-hand side, you're most welcome to do that. So I'm just subtracting 1 over 4x here on both the sides. And these two cancel out each other. Now on the left-hand side, I have 1/2. The inequality sign, then 1 over 3x minus 1 over 4x. So I will write this 1 over 3x minus 1 over 4x. Now you can, let's ignore the variable for a bit and just work on fractions. So 1 over 3 minus 1 over 4. Now you can see that we don't have the same denominator. If you have the common denominator, you can just combine the fraction. But this time we don't have the common denominators. So what we have to do is we have to make the denominators equal. And how do we do that? We have learned that from the fractions is we'll multiply this by 4 over 4 and multiply this by 3 over 3 to make the denominator equal. Now, you can see that the denominators will be equal. 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 3 is 12. Now, let's multiply the numerators and the denominators. So 4 times 1 will give me 4, and 4 times 3 will be 12. And then I have the minus sign in between. 1 times 3 is 3 and 4 times 3 is 12. So 4 over 12 minus 3 over 12 is 1 over 12. Now you can see that I've got the positive fraction here. So you get the positive fraction if you're subtracting negative 1 over 4x. But if you subtract negative 1 over 3x on both sides, you will end up with the negative fractions. And that's why I just avoid that. So now I have 1 over 12 instead of this, and then I also have the variable with it. So I will just include the variable 1 over 12, and then I'll write x, since 1 over 3x minus 1 over 4x will be 1 over 12x. And then I have 1 over 2 left-hand side and less than equal to sign here. Now you can see that I have 12 again in the fraction, and I want x by itself because I have to solve this for x. So I want x by itself. So what can I do to get rid of 12? I can multiply both sides of the equation by 12 to get rid of it. So let's multiply by 12. 12 times 1 over 2 is less than equal to, if we multiply by 12, so 12 will be in the numerator and then 12 in the denominator, and we have x here. 12 divided by 12 will be 1, and we don't, it's not necessary to write 1 in front of x, so we'll just write this as x. And 12 times 1, you can just set the denominator equal to 1. 12 times 1 will be 12. So 12 goes on the top, and then 1 times 2 will give me 2, and I have this side. Now 12 divided by 2 will give me 6. We can solve it here. Will give me 6, and 6 is less than equal to x. So you can see that we have got the same answer. We have got the same answer. Now we will do the same thing again. We'll swap the position since we like to see the variable on the left hand side and the value on the right hand side. So we'll just change the positions and we'll change the inequality sign. So you can see that we have got the same answer for both. So I have showed you two different ways to solve it. Personally, I like to solve it by this way because you just have to find the least common denominator and multiply it. And this one, you have to deal with the fraction. So you multiply, you solve the fraction here. So it's kind of difficult for me to do all these calculations. So I would recommend this method, but it's up to you which method you're comfortable with. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.